So, welcome everybody to tonight's class. This is going to be a really fun one for some of us. For others of us, this is going to be a super big challenge. This is going to rattle a lot of what we think we know. And this is good because the more that we can let go of what is not true, the closer to truth that we can come. So, we're going to go ahead and get started here, and I'm going to share my screen. And while I do that, for those of you that don't know, this is the amazing Caroline.
Hey
She
guys.
is our nutrition magician over at Organic Living Chiropractic.
I'm hanging out a lot with Connie
Yes,
sometimes.
keeping it all together behind the scenes. All righty. So today, we're going to talk about reality.
No big deal.
You know,
Just
just
casual.
that little thing. And specifically, we're talking about truth. The truth about what is real versus what's our own creation, what's only real in our heads. This has kind of been interesting because 2020 has really showed us in a very real way. Uh-oh. There we go. 2020 has showed us in a very, very obvious way that two people can be sitting or standing side by side and experiencing very different realities. So that really begs the question, what is reality? Like, what is real? One of my mentors, Dr. Danya Epstein, he says that reality is just a suggestion. Now, I posted this up on Facebook about a year ago, and I was shocked at how much this one statement upset people. Like, what do you mean reality is a suggestion?
I know
No,
it's real.
right, it's real. And then whenever I started asking questions, what I really got down to is that people weren't violently reacting against the concept that reality is a suggestion. They were violently reacting to what they thought that meant, which was truth is just a suggestion. And today we're going to find out that truth and reality are actually not the same thing at all.
Crazy.
Yeah. Now, going into this, we first need to recognize that if we look around at the emotional health in today's society, in America, which we are the most wealthy country that probably has ever existed, the most wealthy society, we have access to the most resources out of any group in human history. And yet, we spend, like in 2019, $225 billion on mental health.
Wonder what that's going to be.
Yeah,
for 2020 when those results come out.
this is one of the things that has been projected, is that this is actually going to get worse now because of all the isolation, because of the separation, because people are not in these tight-knit communities that are so necessary for emotional health. In 2013, according to Scientific America, 1 in 6 adults was on a psychiatric drug, such as an antidepressant or a sedative. And between 1990 and 2013, the number of people that were suffering from depression or anxiety increased by 50%, which is crazy. So if you're looking around, I would suggest, and it would be hard to argue, that a lot of us are actually struggling a lot with reality. It's not jiving with us. Like, we're not
Something
really in
else,
sync.
yeah, seems to be maybe out of alignment. Maybe it's not actually what we think it is.
Right. And I guarantee you, every single person that is suffering from a mood disorder is very much caught up into that their circumstances are dictating what's going on with them, their internal chemistry, their environment, their upbringing, something that they claim is a reality is having power over them, and it's not working.
But neither is the antidepressant.
Well, make them feel better a little while, but it's not changing the reality.
What about the side effects?
And yes, and the
drugs
side
and
effects.
Yeah.
So one thing that we have to just talk about a little bit is the concept of cognitive dissonance. Because whenever we talk about something like reality, we start shaking up some beliefs and we start speaking some things that are very opposite to what a lot of us hold very, very dear, hold as truth. We can experience cognitive dissonance. And I would suggest that the reason that many of us are suffering with mood disorders, struggling with depression and anxiety whenever we have this amazing life in front of us, is actually because we're experiencing cognitive dissonance. Now, cognitive dissonance is when the brain painfully resists any information coming in that goes against the constructs that it's already established. If you want a great example of this, just get a hardcore Trump supporter and a hardcore Biden supporter in the same room. You will see the pain of cognitive dissonance coming out, because these two people are literally living very different realities. Now, the truth is the same, but their realities are totally and completely different. So we have to recognize that unless we fig up and confront the pain of cognitive dissonance, we're going to end up being stuck in a specific way of being. And the brain hates not changing. Whenever the brain experiences a lack of change for so long, it goes on autopilot, and autopilot starts to decrease the amount of energy and the amount of growth that we will experience. So the more we stay the same, the more we stay stuck in what we consider to be our one singular reality, the more stagnation and death we're going to actually create.
But we do like to believe we like the same.
Oh, absolutely. Love to believe it. That's just
that's not true.
That's not the truth of the universe. The truth of the universe is change is constant. Although some of our reality is that no, it's got to stay the same.
Okay, so to go kind of piggyback on that, we're going to talk about emotions and the thoughts that kind of anchor those things. So thoughts actually anchor our beliefs or patterns about feelings. And so emotionally, if we have those repetitive thoughts over and over, that's what creates a belief or a belief system. Now, a belief doesn't always, like we're going to talk about, mean truth, but it's what you know and you will own and you will experience as your reality. And we're not talking about just religiously here. We're talking about a collection of thoughts that create feelings that will create your belief system. So then the emotions, once we have those, because it's really hard to have thoughts without having an emotion, but emotions will eventually fuel you to make a change, or the opposite, to remain attached to your current reality for the sake of stability and certainty. Like we're saying, a lot of times people claim that they want more of the same, they want consistency, but really we don't want that as a human race. We want diversity, and we want change, because that's what creates and facilitates growth. So what's fueling you and your patterns? What emotion do you have that's attached, that roots you to those things?
Now, guys, your reality may be, well, I don't really feel that many emotions. I don't really feel that much. I can totally have a thought without an emotion. Okay. And that may be your reality, but that's not true. The truth is that even though us males can't connect as well to the emotions and the feelings as a lot of the females can, it still affects us. So every thought that we have is linked to emotion. And the truth is that is affecting us whether or not we experience that as a reality.
But how you portray your feelings is true for you. So
you're giving away a part of the secret of the class. Oh no. So we're going to watch a real close video, a quick video, and then we're going to talk about what this video actually means.
Here we are, the granddaddy of all quantum weirdness, the infamous double slit experiment. To understand this experiment, we first need to see how particles, or little balls of matter, act. If we randomly shoot a small object, say a marble, at the screen, we see a pattern on the back wall where they went through the slit and hit. Now, if we add a second slit, we would expect to see a second band duplicated to the right. Now, let's look at waves. The waves hit the slit and radiate out, striking the back wall with the most intensity directly in line with the slit. The line of brightness on the back screen shows that intensity. This is similar to the line the marbles make. But when we add the second slit, something different happens. If the top of one wave meets the bottom of another wave, they cancel each other out. So now there is an interference pattern on the back wall. Places where the two tops meet are the highest intensity. Marbles, two bands. What? An interference pattern. We fired electrons, tiny bits of matter through. But we get a pattern like waves, not like little marbles. How? How could pieces of matter create an interference pattern like a wave? It doesn't make sense. But physicists are clever. They thought, maybe those little balls are bouncing off each other and creating that pattern. So they decide to shoot electrons through one at a time. There is no way they could interfere with each other. But after an hour of this, the same interference pattern is seen to emerge. The conclusion is inescapable. The single electron leaves as a particle, becomes a wave of potentials, goes through both slits, and interferes with itself to hit the wall like a particle. But mathematically, it's even stranger. It goes through both slits and it goes through neither. And it goes through just one and it goes through just the other. All of these possibilities are in superposition with each other. But physicists were completely baffled by this. So they decided to peek and see which slit it actually goes through. They put a measuring device by one slit to see which one it went through and let it fly. But the quantum world is far more mysterious than they could have imagined. When they observed, the electron went back to behaving like a little marble. It produced a pattern of two bands, not an interference pattern of many. The very act of measuring or observing which slit it went through meant it only went through one, not both. The electron decided to act differently, as though it was aware it was being watched. And it was here that physicists stepped forever into the strange, never world of quantum events. What is matter? Marbles or waves? And waves of what? And what does an observer have to do with any of this? The observer collapsed the wave functions simply by observing.
Okay,
Good stuff.
so most of us have this belief that the reality that we live in is made up of these little bitty atoms which clump together to create molecules, which clump together to create everything that we experience. The truth is that those atoms are made up of no thing. The little bits and pieces that make up an atom do not actually exist in time and space like we think they do. So, what does that tell us about our reality if what it's made up of doesn't actually exist as a thing?
There. Okay. So that experiment is actually called the double slit experiment. This is one of the first quantum experiments that really got me super hooked onto quantum mechanics in general, but it has everything to do with our reality. So, what does this mean for you? And really, it means until something is observed by you, it is unlimited and unbound. It is nowhere, no place. It is in a wave form, which is, or actually a wavelength. I don't want to say form yet. So once something is observed or witnessed, then that's when it collapses from the wave into form or matter. So that's the things that you see around you. So, and actually, in that documentary, I think you have it in the office. What the Bleep Do We Know?
It's an awesome movie.
That is an amazing one. Yeah, I would definitely highly recommend that for more on this topic. But one of the things that they suggest is that, well, when we stop looking or observing at something, anything, even the table in front of us, that it goes back into wave function, that it's not there anymore. So that's just a little something to kind of get you really questioning your reality. But for other things like your circumstances or experiences or things that you want to call into your life, your perceived reality depends on you. It's not happening to you, it's happening for you in collaboration with you. That's the power you hold as an observer. And so it's not just that you're observing it, it's how you're observing it. So, what if we viewed everything that we create, but then also our souls and our bodies' expression in this way or this manner? It'd be a little bit more valuable, maybe. So, the way I like to express it or explain it is you are the formless expressing through form. That's what a soul is, too. A soul, you are a soul having a human experience with the opportunity to create form with your form. You can, with your matter, with your dense body, create.
Now, if you don't want to take Caroline's word for it, we have someone else here.
Einstein.
And I don't know if you know it or not, but this dude is pretty smart. And one of the things that he says is we are slowed down sound and light waves, a walking bundle of frequencies tuned into the cosmos. We are dressed up in sacred biochemical garments, and our bodies are the instrument through which our souls play their music.
You said that more poetically than I did.
Yeah.
But it's still the same.
But what
concept.
kind of reality was Einstein living in that allowed him to be able to experience this? I mean, that's a pretty nice reality. How many of us would like some of that reality?
Do you think he was super rigid in his beliefs?
Probably not.
I don't think so. Okay, so this is a really good example too of just the demonstration of the Newtonian model of what an atom looks like, which is what most of us learned in school growing up. Science class 101 said this model on the right, the Newtonian physics model, has this certain atomic structure. So an atom would have a proton, a neutron, and some electrons floating around it on the outer edges. But what actually quantum physics is discovering to be true is that if you kind of look closely at that left picture, it's all wave. It's not a true structure yet. So it's the act of the observer from that video we watched that actually pulled in electrons to make it the dense form of the atom that we see on the right. So everything is in space or spaciousness. And then the act of observing creates structure or form. I hope that makes a little bit more sense. But that the quantum model is the more accurate model these days.
So the belief that reality is all the stuff and the things out there is actually not true,
It's not here yet.
because all the stuff and things out there only come into existence whenever we're involved with them.
Because of you.
Until we're involved with them, it exists as a multitude of different possibilities and potentials. So if reality is not this thing out there, well, reality must be what I see. I can see reality and I can hear reality. I can touch reality. Well, that's actually not true either. So let's just take our ability to see, and what our ability to see actually is. And believe it or not, no one has ever seen anything or anyone, because the way that sight works is there's photons, there's these little bits of light, and those photons come down, and like on this picture there's a cup, right? And the photons will hit that cup, and some of those photons will bounce off, and those photons that bounce off hit the back of our eye, and they're registered by these very specific cells that will fire electrical signals based on the frequency of that light that's bounced off the cup. So we don't actually see the cup. What we see is, or what we pick up is, we register the light that bounces off of it. Now, after that light bounces off and hits the back of our eyes, when it stimulates those rod and cone cells, that stimulation is turned into an electrical and a chemical impulse. And that electrical chemical impulse goes from the back of our eyes and it goes through different parts of our brain. And some of those parts of our brain that it goes through the emotional and the memory section of our brain. So every time that we see the photons that bounce off of a cup, what happens is it starts to register all those other times in our life. What have we felt and what have we experienced previously whenever we've seen objects that are very, very similar to a cup? And then all that information goes to the very back portion of our brain, in the back over there, the primary visual cortex. And then our brain sends it up to this upper portion where we literally build a picture in our heads about what we think those photons that bounced off of that cup mean. So we've never actually seen a cup. All we've seen is what we experience a cup to be.
So repetitive association, maybe?
Absolutely. So reality is really our experience of the information and energy that exists in waves around us. So we perceive objects by resonating with them, by getting in sync with them. If we are at a totally different wavelength, then we will not actually experience what's right around us. And I think many of us have had this experience. We've had this reality where we're driving down the road and all of a sudden we're like at our destination and we had no idea like what was going on around there. We were just like on autopilots. Okay, we were not in harmony. We were not resonating with the environment around us as we were driving. We were resonating with our own thoughts. We were resonating with the past that we've driven that time, that same route, and it got us there without even being aware, without even being able to perceive what was happening with it. So to know the real world is literally to be on its wavelength. All right. And so just recognize that everything in existence is in a wave. All right. Light is a wave. Color is a wave. Sound is a wave. Molecules vibrate in a wave. Life is a vibration.
Okay. So this is my little spiel because I'm in the nutrition world. But if you're a client, you kind of know that I do a lot of other things that have an association with nutrition. But you are what you absorb, but we don't just absorb food. So if everything is energy and information, and everything is vibrating, then our food, not just our food, but our thoughts, our beliefs, and our feelings also have a frequency or vibration. And so those are the instructions for your body, but not just your physical body, your emotional body, your mental body, your spiritual body. So, if nutrition, the definition of nutrition would be the process of providing or obtaining the food necessary for health and growth. But if we want to break it down a little bit more, the definition of food would be any nutritious substance that is absorbed to maintain life and growth. So that leads us back to thoughts, beliefs, and feelings. So I find that when people have a self limiting belief, their digestion system changes dramatically. And that invites a lot of healing that a supplement or a diet change could not create, or as much of a creation as just shifting your emotions or your beliefs about what they mean. So nutrition for the body is absolutely hinging on other things as well.
So, one of the most prolific inventors of the 19th century, he's the main reason that we have most things that run on electricity, said that if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Because the truth is, that is the most real thing. Everything else that we experience as our reality is our interpretation of that energy, of that frequency, of that vibration. We take in, we sense that, and then we make up a story about that, and then that is our reality. And since everybody has different experiences, everybody has different stories, everybody literally has a different reality. How crazy is that? So now we're going to watch just a quick video about how the brain kind of makes some of these associations.
The brain is made up of tiny nerve cells called neurons. These neurons have tiny branches that reach out and connect to other neurons to form a neural net. Each place where they connect is integrated into a thought or a memory. Now, the brain builds up all its concepts by the law of associative memory. For example, ideas, thoughts, and feelings are all constructed and interconnected in this neural net, and all have a possible relationship with one another. The concept and the feeling of love, for instance, is stored in this vast neural net. But we build the concept of love from many other different ideas. Some people have love connected to disappointment. When they think about love, they experience the memory of pain, sorrow, anger, and even rage. Rage may be linked to hurt, which may be linked to a specific person, which then is connected back to love. We know physiologically that nerve cells that fire together wire together. If you practice something over and over again, those nerve cells have a long-term relationship. If you get angry on a daily basis, if you get frustrated on a daily basis, if you suffer on a daily basis, you're rewiring and reintegrating that neural net on a daily basis, and that neural net now has a long-term relationship with all those other nerve cells called an identity. Every time we interrupt the thought process that produces a chemical response in the body, every time we interrupt it, those nerve cells that are connected to each other start breaking the long-term relationship. We're in completely new territory in our brain. And because we're in completely new territory, we're rewiring the brain, literally reconnecting to a new concept.
So, not only is reality something that we create, we also have the ability to change it. And this is super important right now because we do have to acknowledge that everybody's living their own reality. So for some people, the fear that they're experiencing, that reality around germs right now, is drastically altering how they're going about life. For some people, the reality is germs are super dangerous. For other people, the reality is our body's gonna, have to fight those off. It's gonna have to use some resources to overcome the challenges of those germs. For other people, germs aren't even an issue. We're so functional that we're kind of surprised at how much fear there is around all of this stuff. So whenever push comes to shove, what's going to happen whenever we're squeezed is the reality that we practice most often is going to come to the surface. And so, if we practice living a reality that's based on fear, that's based on being a victim to our circumstances, whenever stress comes, whenever change comes, whenever life puts the squeeze on us, that's what we're going to default to. If we're living a reality in which we're embracing change, we're embracing growth, and everything is an opportunity to make a shift and to learn and become a better version of ourselves, then when life puts the squeeze on us, that's what we're going to end up falling back to. So the reality that we're all living in, the truth about that is that has more to do with us than it does the information and energy going on around us. Okay, so like we talked about in the very beginning, there's a difference between truth and reality. Truth is objective, it's true for everybody. Reality, though, is subjective. So let me offer this as kind of a story. So, or an analogy. If you were to look outside right now, would you say that it's true that the sun is up? And if you look outside, you can kind of determine that for yourself. Yes, it is true that the sun's up, or no, it is not true that the sun's up, depending on what time you look outside. But if you ask somebody at this very moment that's on the other side of the planet, they will say, well, no, it's true that it's the opposite of what you say. So our reality is different depending on which side of the planet on. And we could say that the truth is that the sun is neither up nor down for anybody. The truth is that the earth rotates around the sun, and so it will appear as though it'll come up at different times for different people. So that's the truth about the sun that is true for everybody, although their experience of it, their reality of it is different.
That's the thing about, though, with truth being objective. Um, Depending on how far you want to go, like we can't maybe in this time and place really know totally what objective truth is. That's why your reality creates your particular truth, and it doesn't make it right or wrong, because it might just be unknowable. And so therein lies a little bit of allowance for people having
their own reality.
Yes, their own reality.
And this is
Not
something,
their own truth,
right?
Reality.
That's what I've heard many times is, well, this is my truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, that's your reality. The truth is you might be an idiot.
Is it really true? And how do you know that to be true? And is that a belief? And therefore you believe it to be true.
So now we're going to get to the part that's going to create the most cognitive dissonance for most of us, is that truth and reality are kind of like two ends of a magnet. They're opposite poles. And the farther you go towards one, the farther away from the other one that you get. Now, we need both. Neither's good nor bad, but we have to recognize that they are seeming opposites. Okay. Now, we know this from science, because whenever we are looking at subatomic particles, we can either measure the position of that subatomic particle, or we can measure the speed or velocity. But believe it or not, we can't measure both. When we start to measure the speed or velocity, we lose the position. And we start to measure the position, we lose the speed or velocity. So what this is telling us, the truth of what this is telling us, is that our being state is very different from our doing state. And the more into doing we are, the farther from being we are. And the more into being we are, the farther into doing we are.
But what do we value more here in this time and place?
Exactly.
Doing. We love to do. We place our worth and value on doing.
And that's why we have so much chaos and turmoil, because everyone is confusing reality from truth. And they're going around acting like their reality is hard truth. So the most hard truth that we can consciously, conceptually get to is I am. And that is true for everyone at all times. If you have the ability to verbalize, if you have the ability to think, if you have the ability to be, then what you can say is, it is true that I am. Okay. If you move a little bit farther away from truth and a little bit closer to reality, because again, reality is what we experience, you could say, I am experiencing. Now, I know that I'm experiencing. I'm not quite sure if anybody else is experiencing. That's not something I can say that is true. I can say that I am, and I can say that I'm experiencing someone else, but I can't actually say that I know that she is. I've often wondered how real you are, many times. So if we go a little bit farther away from truth and a little bit closer to reality, we could say, I am experiencing something. I am experiencing thinking. I'm experiencing feeling. I am experiencing breathing. I'm experiencing running. A multitude of different things. But notice we're going farther and farther into the experience.
Now you're starting to label it.
Right.
You're naming it by offering it a word association.
And since truth is just energy and information in its pure potential form, whenever we start to label it, whenever we start to condense it, when we start to collapse the wave function into a reality, we're actually moving away from truth. It's becoming less
You're boxing
true.
it in.
Totally. Mm-hmm. And all the way closer to reality, we get all of the judgments that we get about our experience. And I'm experiencing thinking that I don't like washing dishes. Now, how do we know that this experience that I'm having, this negative experience of washing dishes, how do we know this is not truth? Because believe it or not, there are actually people out there that enjoy washing dishes. You want to hear a very interesting story? Ask Connie about washing dishes whenever you come into the office. Her experience, her reality of washing dishes is very different than my reality. Right? The truth is, I am. And from that, we also have a reality that's made of my experiences. And those experiences are very different. And so every individual's reality is different, even though there is an overarching truth.
So you could say, I am, therefore I wash dishes. And then you can create your experience of washing dishes by judging that you don't like it.
But the good news is that even though truth is objective and it's immutable and it's unchangeable, your reality is. So I can change my reality. I don't have to ever not enjoy washing dishes because I have an amazing dishwasher. Or we can practice some of the amazing tools and techniques that Connie teaches to actually learn how to enjoy the present moment, no matter what that you're doing. So that the reality of I am experiencing thinking I don't like doing dishes, you can actually change to I am experiencing a reality in which I do like washing dishes. So the more we cling to our singular reality as an objective truth, the more we're actually going to choose to unconsciously avoid love, because love is a truth. It's a fundamental component of existence. We're going to choose to avoid communities, because if there's someone that has a different reality than I do, and I am so stuck to my reality that I am not looking at truth, then their reality, if it's different than me, that's going to create a cognitive dissonance, and that's going to hurt, and I don't like to hurt, and so I'm
how much of that is happening right now, right?
Oh my gosh, so much of that. And there's so much destruction that's being created. Now, all of that destruction is not bad. We don't have to necessarily experience destruction as bad. But we do have to acknowledge that there's a lot of destruction that's being created right now because of this clinging to a singular reality and confusing that with objective truth.
Well, I also want to kind of throw in here too, identity. So what truth or what part of your reality like seriously anchors you to something you believe about your identity? And like, that's a whole nother talk, but how much of that is actually really authentically true for you? Like, do we even need to have an identity? But it seems that's what I kind of observed a
At
lot
the
of.
truest level, just I am.
Mhm.
There's no identity in I am. There is no personality in I am. All of those come whenever we start to pay attention to the experience, our perceived creation that we call our reality, which is very different from the truth, which I am.
Yeah, you
That's
don't
it.
want to keep boxing yourself in. That's the thing.
Because if something else comes along that's outside of your box,
Then
oops,
what?
then you
That doesn't
am
fit.
different.
And no one else fits. Yeah.
So remember that conscious thoughts repeated often enough become unconscious thinking. The neural net video that we watched was by an amazing man by the name of Dr. Joe Dispenza. Highly recommends checking out some of his information. I believe his website is Encephalon, starts with an E, encephalon.com. And he teaches a lot of different techniques on how to change your experience and how to create a different reality. Now, remember, because the material world, or really the immaterial world, responds to us observing it, the way that we observe it actually affects what shows up. So when we change our reality, the information and the energy fields around us, they show up very differently. The wave function gets collapsed very differently. So the best way to create a very different reality for yourself and for those around you is to change your relationship with your thoughts, to change your relationship with your feelings, to change your relationship with your experiences. And you will notice what you think of, what you experience as the world around you will start to change based on that.
A lot of it even comes down to just making a choice. Like, make a positive choice. And that's what brings us to this one.
Absolutely. And this is one of the things that Dr. Joe teaches is how to change your reality. If you have the same thoughts, you're going to make the same choices. You're going to have the same actions and behaviors. You're going to create the same experiences. You're going to create the same feelings, which then are going to lead back to the same thoughts, the same choices, the same actions and behaviors, the same experiences, the same feelings, the same thoughts, the same choices. Or you can break that cycle. You can disconnect those neurons by making a choice to have new thoughts that are outside of your reality. Look around at your reality. Is it going well for you? Are you enjoying it? Are you needing a whole bunch of medications, a whole bunch of substances, a whole bunch of behaviors to make your reality bearable? If that's the case, start today with a new thought. It doesn't have to be something that you believe. As a matter of fact, if it is something that you believe, you're probably thinking the same thoughts. But start with a brand new thought that is far outside of reality. That will lead to a new choice if you follow that new thought. That will lead to new actions and behaviors. That will lead to new experiences. That will lead to new feelings, which then lead to more new thoughts, which then lead to more new choices and new actions and behaviors and new experiences and new feelings. And round and round and round we go. But at the end of the day, we have to recognize it is not the circumstances that create our reality. It's us. If we do not acknowledge that truth, we are going to have a very tough and challenging reality. And it doesn't have to be that way.
And guys, this like rewiring of your brain, it sounds complicated, complex, and like arduous, but it's not. It really does not take that long or that many choices to change into a new state of being. Once you make, one different choice to think about something differently in a more positive way, like, you've already started to change that neural network of something that was maybe not so comfortable or congruent for you. And it, just over time, a couple more choices to have a different feeling, then you have a completely new set of, or new way of being entirely.
So I want to thank everybody for joining us. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, go ahead and type them into the chat. If you're watching this on Facebook, either live or you're watching it at some future point, go ahead and type in a question, type in a comment. We're going to get back to you as soon as we can. Let's have an interaction. Let's make a connection. Let's see if we can create a shared reality that we really enjoy, that we want to be a part of. And if you have any specific questions for our nutrition magician, here is her information over here at the Biologic Nutrition Center. You can always contact Organic Living Chiropractic at organiclivingchiropractic.com. You can email us organiclivingchiropractic@gmail.com. Our phone number, since it's not on there, is 719-200-8615. Call us, give Connie or any one of our office staff a cheerful hello, and let's make a connection. Let's make a contact so that we can create a larger shared reality, because let's face it, we are all connected. We are all interconnected. So your reality, even though it's not my reality, it still has an effect. And my reality, even though it's not your reality, it has an effect on you. So the more and more we can come together and to consciously take our power back and choose to create a reality that we all want to live in, oh man, it's going to be better for the entire world.
We are all part of the whole.
So thanks again for joining us. Let's see. I think we had a couple of.
Can you go here?
Go here. And I can go chat. Okay. There we go. Yeah, and thank you, Connie, for putting up some of that information in the chat. We'll go ahead and put that up on Facebook. But it doesn't seem like many people have questions. So we will go ahead and sign off for today. Really appreciate everyone joining us. This was a lot of fun. We would love to connect with you. Check us out on Facebook. Check our YouTube page out, and please subscribe and like. Please contact us, and we look forward to connecting with you either in person or digitally or just in the field. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you soon.